All right. Welcome everyone to today's event with Karun. Hi, Karun. It looks like he's already here.
Yeah,
Let's wait for everyone to join. Meanwhile, since it's gonna be a recorded workshop, we can begin with the introduction on what we're gonna cover. And yeah, first of all, I want to thank Karun for coming in on a Saturday. He also has a full-time job, guys, and he is a wonderful mentor who has probably the biggest heart who from all of LinkedIn, seriously, and I'm not joking. And if you guys are not following him, please do so. He already mentors many aspiring data scientists, and he comes to break into data regularly, which I deeply, deeply appreciate. And yeah, look out for the future workshops with Karun. We're going to be talking a lot on recommender systems in the upcoming months. And I cannot wait to share everything that we're preparing with you. But meanwhile, today we're going to be focusing on the job search strategy. And I know for many of you, this is one of the hardest times of your lives. And yeah, thank you so much for bringing this slides. So that's why today Karun will share all the strategies that has worked for him and worked for his countless mentees. And I told him last time, why don't we please bring it to Break Into Data community? So this is one of our free workshops, but we also host paid workshops if you want to really get into it and meet with the community during accountability calls. And yeah, but today it's going to be half of the time Karun will explain the strategy, and half the time he'll be answering Q&A. So this is going to be very interactive. And yeah, I think I will just give it all to Karun and we can go from there.
awesome. Thanks, Ronnie. So yeah, just a quick intro of myself. My name's Karan. I'm a senior data scientist. I currently work at Walmart. I've been in the DS space for the last 6 years or so. And yeah, just to contextualize where a lot of my suggestions regarding like the job market comes from, went through sort of like the 2020 job market where sort of like when COVID hit, a lot of our offers were rescinded and we had to scramble and find some alternatives pretty quickly. And I went through like very recently the 2023 job market, sort of like when all the layoffs started and the market was flooded with candidates. So yeah, most of my suggestions and what's worked has been based on my personal experience in these two markets. And yeah, I've helped close to like 2 dozen mentees land jobs in 2024. So it's a bit based on that as well. So yeah, let's dive right into it. Coming to landing a data science job in 2025. So in just before we go into sort of like the job application strategy, one of the key things that you have to start with is like a marketable portfolio. So what do I mean by a marketable portfolio? Um, for each specific kind of role, the hiring manager is looking for certain skill sets, not necessarily technologies, but certain skill sets. And you want to demonstrate those skill sets through your projects. For instance, like there are a bunch of different roles in data analyst, applied data scientist, product data scientist, machine learning engineer, AI engineer. All of it has slightly different skill sets that they look for. For instance, for an applied data scientist, it's typically your ability to fit and tune models, your ability to do data analysis and feature engineering, productionize models, and also do error analysis and improve models, because more often than not you're coming into a team which has like mature models and the idea is to iteratively improve them. So these are like some of the skill sets that the hiring manager is looking for. So there are like different types of projects that you can build to showcase this, like fitting and tuning. One of my favorite projects to recommend is like a forecasting project, like the M5 series forecasting, M5 time series forecasting competition actually used Walmart's sales forecasting data. So it's like a really practical business relevant problem to work on. And since it's sort of time series forecasting, you can use a lot of statistical models, show how the model is performing on a data set, understand what went wrong, and iteratively improve models. So it's a really good a project I feel not only to put on your resume, but also explain during interviews, showcase that you really understand models and fitting and tuning very well. There are like a bunch of other projects that I also recommend for applied data scientist, and I've worked with Mary and two other great creators, Dawn and Sai, to create like a portfolio of projects that you can try for different roles. So you can find that link on my top mate, and I believe it's linked or linked in the BuildML community as well. It covers data analyst, product data scientist, applied data scientist, and AI engineer roles. So make sure you have like a portfolio of projects that meet the skills the HM is looking for. Once you have that portfolio, then the rest of the strategy that I mentioned can sort of increase or have shown to increase sort of your callback rates essentially. So, won't go over the portfolio. I mean, what makes a good portfolio? Everything's there in the guide. If you have any questions, again, drop it in the Breaking the Data channel and we can go over it. But skipping directly into strategy once you have a portfolio. So once you have a portfolio, the next thing to work on is sort of your resume. So there are quite a few things in terms of like how to go about writing a resume, and like how to convey what you did in your bullet points. I've covered them in prior sessions, but there is like a guide and a video attached to the slide that you can check over. But the key things that I find people making mistakes over and over again. The first one is they sort of create different versions of resume for every job description. I don't really advise doing this. This is because it takes a lot of time and effort to create a different version of your resume, make sure it's grammatically correct. And once you hit apply, there is not a lot of chance that they even get back to you. So what you want to do is you want to maintain a high quality of your resume, but at the same time be able to apply to a huge quantity of roles without burning yourself out. If you spend a huge amount of time rewriting your resume, you like mentees tend to burn out a bit faster when they do that. So what I advise is creating themed resumes. For instance, like from my experience, I had experience in fintech and e-commerce, and I had some projects in forecasting and some in NLP. So I realized that based on all of my projects, I can create only a set number of resumes. So I had like one forecasting technical heavy resume, one NLP technical heavy resume, one finance centered or oriented resume, and one e-com oriented resume, and one resume which had a bit of everything. So once when I see a job description, whichever resume was the most apt one, I would just take that resume and apply with that. Similarly, you can create other work samples based on your best projects. Like you typically most applications may require a cover letter. So it's good to have those cover letters ready based on your best projects. Like I had a cover letter based on one to two of the best forecasting projects that I did, one to two of the best NLP projects, one to two of the best finance problems that I solved. So having that ready, having your why this company paragraph, those statements also tend to be sometimes read. So having that also ready based on your projects and your prior experience, that can help reduce a lot of time and also maintain quality of your application. If you take like 5 minutes to write your why this company ad hoc when you're applying, it may not translate as well. So create these themed work samples, take a weekend, make sure it's well edited, and you have this. So now you can just select which is the best one and apply, maintaining quantity, and you won't burn out as much. The next thing is, what about the ATS? If I don't tailor my resume, how do I make sure it clears the ATS bar? So typically in your resume, you will have a section called skills, and within it, you will have a section called competencies. So you would fill it with a bunch of keywords like Python, scikit-learn, regression analysis, decision trees, whatever keywords whatever techniques that you're comfortable with, you're familiar with. So whenever you see a job description, look through the job description and see what keywords are there and make sure those keywords are there within this section. So this limits the amount of personalizing you need to do for each resume. So you just need to update those keywords and more often than not, that will clear the ATS bar. And in terms of like bang for buck or the worth of your time, I typically recommend only editing this skill section. Once you have selected your themed resume, just edit this skill section to make sure the keywords are there and hit apply. So these are the two things sort of that I feel mentees might make a mistake on often. There is a few other things with respect to writing the resume, like I mentioned on how you write your bullets. Your bullets have to answer three questions. What is the problem? What is the technical details of the solution? And what kind of impact did you have? If you're doing an academic project, you might not have like a business impact metric. So then compare your solution with some kind of SOTA in that problem space. Like if you're doing forecasting, there are state-of-the-art models that you can compare to showcase how much better your solution is, so that the hiring manager can get an idea or gauge the quality of the project that you developed. Those are like some other things in terms of like writing a resume. There's like a pre-recorded video and a guide as well, but in the interest of time, I'll skip over it. The next thing is optimizing your LinkedIn. Resume is one portion, LinkedIn is the other portion. LinkedIn is sort of what helps you get a lot of those referrals. So make sure you have a good LinkedIn. Start with your headline. So headline typically, I recommend a few uh, having like a few takeaway things that people can grab quickly. One is like the role that you're targeting. If you're targeting data scientists, you should write it. You shouldn't be writing something like actively searching opportunities. Just say data scientist. Um, you can put sort of like a few keywords of the kind of technical or business domain that you typically focus on. Another line on the amount of experience you have in this domain. Um, it can be business experience, but it can also be project oriented experience as well. And if you have a master's, mention that. If you were associated with any company that had more than like 1,000 employees, you can attach that company name, like X company name as well, if you're not with that company also. In the about section, again, a few key takeaways that people can grab quickly. The first one, who you are, for example, data analyst with 3 years of experience, driving decision making in supply chain and retail domain. So you're mentioning the role, the amount, years of experience, and the business domains that you're familiar with. Then you can dive a bit more into your technical skill set. And then you can sort of dive into one of the main projects that sort of sell your value as a data scientist, data analyst, etc. Um, a one-liner on that project. And again, we typically recommend the PSI format, so the problem, solution, impact format. So build a hierarchical clustering model to segment customers of some company, identifying high-value customer groups, improving target email marketing, increasing CTR and GMV. So these are the metrics. This is the technical model. And this is sort of the business domain that you're working in, which is targeted email marketing. So make sure you have all those three things: the problem, the solution, and the impact. So this is what we call like a career summary, or the first paragraph of your about section. The remaining paragraphs you can sort of populate with other projects, but this first paragraph is typically what people focus in on. So make sure that that first paragraph is pretty crisp. Um, Apart from that, in LinkedIn, what else to do? Your LinkedIn has a skill section. Make sure you add as many keywords to that skill section as possible. If you're not sure what skills are relevant to your role, LinkedIn has gone through the job descriptions it has, and stated what are the most important keywords for each role. So you can find that in this LinkedIn GitHub. Um, Apart from that, if you can get recommendation, like if you're in college, get recommendations from your peers, get recommendations from your professors. If you're working, again, same thing, peers. If you can get recommendations, it would come across, it would make your profile a bit more legit, basically. And photos, again, make sure you have professional photos. Like the profile photo should be professional, the background should be professional. In terms of like open to work, typically I would say put open to work only for recruiters. If you have a very huge network, sometimes people like to put open to work for all. This is because if you have a very huge network, people in your network will reach out to you saying that, hey, we have opening on our team, and I can refer you. If you have a network like that, feel free to put open to work for all. But otherwise, if you have like a fairly small network, open to work just for recruiters make a bit more sense. Because again, your LinkedIn is sort of what you use to get reference. So not having open to work sort of sets you up to start a conversation with other people a bit better, in my opinion. So this is what uh, what we covered thus far: the portfolio, the resume, the LinkedIn. Now the next sort of the key aspect of getting a call back. So 50% of getting called back is your resume and your LinkedIn. The other 50% is sort of having a good referral. So how do we get that referral? Again, through LinkedIn. It's basically a numbers game. So LinkedIn, if you have like the LinkedIn basic premium version, you get to send about 100 connection requests per week. Along with that, you get like a 300 character connection message. So the rule of thumb that I typically tell my mentees is 10 uh, connection requests per company that you're aiming to crack. And within the connection message, be very direct about what you want. Like a lot of people do feel like, oh, I need to establish a rapport. I need to provide something in return. I do agree with a lot of that, but since job applications are very time sensitive, I would say it's okay to be very direct. And if you have a good LinkedIn profile with fairly relevant projects, people would be comfortable referring you because they've been through the same process. They understand what you're trying to do. So, in terms of the connection message, two lines: hi, I want a referral for this particular job ID. Because I've worked on this particular project, again a PSI format of the project, like I built a hierarchical clustering model to segment customers, so and which drove like 12% increase in GME, which I feel tailors well with this role that focuses on marketing analytics. So a project that relates very well with the job description. It has to relate to the job description. If you don't have a project that relates to the JD very well, don't go for a referral via LinkedIn. You'll just be basically wasting your connection messages. So if you have a relevant project, only then go and ask people for referral. Um, and typically, like I mentioned, we have 100 connection requests that we can send out per day. I usually recommend to my mentees to use an 80-20 rule. So 80 of those connection messages, send it to, like, if you're aiming for data science role, send it to data scientist working in that company, asking them to refer. Like, let's say there's an opening at Amazon. You're going to ask 10 people at Amazon, hey, can you refer me for this particular job, this particular role? So it's 80 of those connection messages you're going to use to get a referral at like Amazon or Facebook or Duolingo or DeepSeek or Perplexity, whatever. So those companies, you're gonna send out 10 per company and try and get a referral via that way. The rest 20, you're gonna use that to connect with people who post I am hiring messages. Again, be a bit selective about who you reach out to. Um, Sort of like companies which have like 500 plus employees, their recruiters or hiring managers who make that post typically get bombarded with messages. So try and target companies who have less than 500 or less than 1,000 employees. And for international students, before you connect with anybody, especially smaller companies, check on H1B grader if they sponsor or not, um, because you don't want to run into that situation later on. Another rule of thumb is you typically can only expect a referral rate between 4 to 6%. This means for 100 connection requests that you send out, only 4 to 6 people are going to respond. That is sort of like the norm we see in the current market. Don't get disheartened. Sort of keep at it. It is a numbers game. Typically, what I've seen with mentees is it takes about 3 weeks of doing this before referrals sort of start trickling in. So stay at it for at least 3 weeks. If after 3 weeks you still don't see um, people aren't willing to refer you, maybe reassess your LinkedIn a bit. And if you feel your LinkedIn is well written, maybe reassess your projects a bit. Make sure they're actually business relevant projects. But typically we see like 4 to 6% referral rate. And the rule of thumb that you can aim for to understand whether, hey, am I applying enough? It doesn't really matter the number of cold applications you send out. Even if that increases or decreases, it doesn't really convert to a lot of callbacks. The referred applications are what we see is like a better metric of getting callbacks. So you need to aim for at least 20 referred applications a week. Um, so that means like in whatever job role you're applying for, it has to be via a referral from an employee in the company. For the cold applications that you make, they don't necessarily convert to a even like a 1% callback rate. Like it's very low, the cold application to callback rate conversion. If you typically hit this like 20 referred applications per week, we do see like around 3% callbacks. So that means for about 100 referred applications you send out, you get between like 3 to 5, I would say 3 to 5 callbacks. Again, referred applications, not cold applications, referred applications. Coming to another strategy to get referrals, it's cold email. This works at a much higher scale. There is like a really good format for cold emails. I've mentioned it in the doc, and the doc you'll get after the session. It has everything that I'm talking about and links to almost all the resources I'm mentioning as well. But there is like a recommended format for cold emails to keep it as short as possible, but to hopefully sell yourself across well. And yeah, it works only at like a really high scale, 100 weeks, 100 per week. There is a plugin called Apollo, which if you know the person's name, which typically is available on LinkedIn, it can guess what their email sort of is at whatever company they're working. So you could use tools like that to figure out what their email is and sort of try cold emailing. Typically it's seen to work only at like very large scale, like we're talking like hundreds of cold emails per week. But it is a strategy that, depending upon how time sensitive you are to get your next job, you could try. And the last one in terms of getting a referral is in-person meetups. So there are a lot of like meetups that go around in whichever city you're located. So make sure you try and attend at least a few of those. In addition, competitions and hackathons. Again, in-person ones are a good place. You don't need to necessarily win or anything, but it's a good place to meet people and maybe get a few referrals. And obviously, communities like Break Into Data, Build ML, these are communities where you can maybe meet other people, and it could act as a venue for getting referrals as well. Cool. Apart from all of this, what else? So, like I mentioned, have a good portfolio. That's sort of what your foundation is. After you have a good portfolio, getting a call back is 50% your resume and your LinkedIn, and the other 50% is a referral. So, apart from all of this, what other sort of tips or strategies work? One is sort of like the two email strategy. So, as soon as you see a job application, using one email, apply then and there. That's sort of your cold application. Then within 2 weeks or 2 weeks of the job being posted, within that time frame, try and get a referral via LinkedIn, via cold email, via in-person meetups, whatever. And use a different email for that. It sort of makes sure that you at least have an application in. Cold applications sometimes works out for smaller companies. For larger companies, haven't seen it work out that often, but maybe it really depends upon like the team, the recruiter, and stuff like that. And yeah, like I mentioned, around 2 to 4 or 3 to 4% callback rate is what we expect. So don't get disheartened if you don't get a lot of callbacks when you're sending out like hundreds of applications. In the current market, it is sort of what we are seeing. Like we do see very low callback, and basically don't get disheartened. You would be in it for sort of like a long haul, and it's basically a mental game at this point. Once you have your portfolio in, once you have your resume in, and once you have those two core elements sort of ready, it's basically a mental game at that point. You just need to be patient and make sure you hit these targets of like 2 to 4 callback, 4 to 6 referral, 20 referred applications a week. As long as you're doing all those things, it should only be a matter of time. Cool. I think this is basically all what I wanted to cover for the session. We can probably get started with some of the Q&As or questions like folks have. Uh, what is the first project? There are a bunch of projects for applied data scientists. Typically, the projects I recommend is like a forecasting project, a large scale project on PySpark, and any project in sort of the NLP domain. Typically, if it's like question answering oriented, that tends to get like a decent callback. I mean, it tends to maybe get you a higher callback rate than other projects. So those three are like projects that I recommend, but everything is covered in this guide. You can find it on the slide. You will find it on the doc that I send out as well. Is there issue with latex or resume with respect to ATS compatibility? As long as like the final version is in a PDF format and it goes through a resume parser, as in like any kind of PDF parsing, it can go through it. It's fine. And the only thing after that, the only thing you need to focus on is whether the keywords that's there in the job description and maybe like some hidden keywords that could be there. Those keywords are there in your resume or not. And the skill section, like I mentioned, the competencies can sort of take care of that. Wouldn't waiting for 3 weeks to get a referral make me miss that job opportunity? Yeah, like I mentioned, you can use the two email strategy. One email to do a cold application, and the other 2 weeks within the job being posted, try and get a referral in. If you can't, probably you missed that opportunity. Yeah. Can we make duplicate applications to the same job? Yes, it's fine. You just need to make sure you have different emails. The emails that trickle through your resume, CV, and all of that. Again, this is my opinion. Is it okay? Is it not okay? Again, sort of like personal preferences. It's something that I do recommend people do, just because of how many applicants can enter it within like a short amount of time, and some people might just have like better networks who refer them. What project for data engineering, and does it require data science project or data engineering? I won't be the right person. I don't really have a lot of skill set in DE. Can you share a sample data science resumes to help? There is a sample data science resume guide attached on this top mate as well. How can people who are not in US or UK based get jobs in US or UK companies? I won't be the right person for that. Want to know, how do we get to build portfolio projects? Is there any part-time non-profit opportunities? There are a few non-profit companies, but the guide does go over a few projects. We typically take data sets from open data sources like Kaggle, UCI repository, stuff like that. Fintech data science from like Nasdaq, Data Link, stuff like that. What data sets are sort of like good business problems? We have like a few samples for each of the roles, so you can check those out. If you're absolutely new, we even have like recommendations on guided projects. Don't put the guided project in your resume. It's just to help you understand what a project looks like. But once you're done a guided project, then you can take one of the data sets and sort of figure out how to build a project. What type of projects have you guys seen for data engineering role? Again, DE roles, I won't be the right person. What type of jobs are easy to apply now or less saturated, like data science, MLE, AI engineer? I wouldn't like, it's sort of like an employer market at this point, that there's quite a bit of supply, and folks are sort of reassessing what to invest in. So hiring, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's kind of at a plateau. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's any role that is saturated. Certain roles have a slightly higher bar, like data science. Typically, there are a lot of people who are experienced, who are in the job market. So companies tend to prefer those experienced people. Data analyst roles, um, typically freshers have like a decent chance of cracking data analyst roles. So if you are time sensitive, if you're like an international student, if you need to land a role in the next 60 to 90 days, I typically do advise my mentees to maybe give data analyst a shot and maybe switch into data science later down the line. But again, it's based on their personal preference, their risk appetite, the kind of projects that they already have. If you're starting from sort of like zero or close to that, data analyst might be a decent, might be the most, um, might be the role with the kind of relatively lowest bar. It doesn't have a low bar by any means, but a relatively lower bar compared to data science or AI engineer. Do referrals works once you have applied for the job? If you use a different email ID, sure. I've noticed that when I import my CV to fill in an application, popular hiring pattern, it rarely imports data well. No, typically most hiring platforms, including Workday, doesn't really parse the resume really well. You have to edit it quite often. Is house price prediction and its integration with ML also base? No, house price prediction typically is like oversaturated. Most people won't really consider that a good project. Like again, business relevant projects. If you want an idea of business relevant projects, just go to Kaggle, check for the competitions that have been running for the last 2 years maybe, and sort by descending order of price money. Whichever is like the projects with the highest price money are currently the most important business projects. For person with 6 years of data science experience, do you have any more specific recommendation for applying to a job or resume related recommendations? Is it relevant to have post projects? Um, if you have 6 years of experience, typically you're focused on a particular domain by now. For me, it's e-commerce. So I've worked a bit on supply chain side, a bit on the Rexis side. So most of my resume is situated around e-commerce. So demonstrating a lot of business nuance in the resume will help you a lot. Business nuance in terms of like metrics, and sort of like the problems get a bit more nuanced. It's hard to describe, but since you have the experience, hopefully you'll understand like how the problems get a bit more nuanced compared to like starter projects, which would follow like basic templates of demand forecasting or recommendation systems. The projects that you might have worked on would become a bit more nuanced. So the business problem becomes a bit more nuanced, and the metrics become a bit more nuanced. So make sure you focus in on those. Um, yeah. Apart from that, no other recommendations on personal projects unless you want to switch into a different field, like, or if you want to demonstrate like, I have like skill sets in Gen AI or with LLMs, then maybe you can add in a personal project, but I wouldn't say it's required. So yeah, focus on the business part of things because you have 6 years of experience. You're typically expected to drive the next in business, and focus on personal products not required unless you want to transition into a different role or capacity. If your prior role is a Power BI role, would data analyst be a good role to transition to? Sure, it could be a good role. Like visualization is like one of the core skill sets for data analysts, like visualization and communication. I think the few others are like data modeling and data analysis and statistics and statistics and maybe a bit of experimentation. Not sure, but check the guide. It lists down what skills are important. But yeah, if you're in a Power BI role, picking up the sort of like filling the gaps in the other with the other skill sets with projects could help you land a data analyst role. Full stack software engineer with 8 years of experience. I'm started reading Hands-on LLM by O'Reilly. Have you read it? Do you think it's a good start to gain some skills in LLM? Um, how I started is there's this creator called Aishwarya Naresh. I think she's been on Build ML. She has like a GitHub repo. So that's how I started. I haven't read that book, so I wouldn't be able to make a suggestion. Also, standard Android and GSML foundation course. Can you suggest next steps? If you're new to ML, go through ISLP, Introduction to Statistical Learning in Python, or hands-on scikit-learn, hands-on machine learning with scikit-learn in Python. It's an O'Reilly textbook. It's pretty decent. Those two would sort of help you get started. After that, just take datasets on Kaggle and start building projects. Is it okay if my resume is 2 pages long? It's fine. People might not read it, but if you want to keep it as 2 pages, it's fine. Will it be an ATS issue? No, I don't think so. In Workday, when they ask for role description, should we fill it up with what we did in the role, or should it just be a general description of the role that we did? Uh, Typically, the projects that you did in the role would suffice. I'm not sure. Like I haven't seen role description. It's typically experience, and you have like a box where you can paste whatever the projects were. So I'm guessing it's that. And yeah, you usually just copy paste your experience into that huge text box. How many projects do you think are good to have in a portfolio as a 4 year computer vision engineer, for example? Really doesn't depend upon the number of projects. Like Like you could have like one project which had a lot of moving parts, in which case you would have a lot of bullets. You just need to aim to fill out one page of your resume. So how many other projects it takes to fill that out? Usually one project might have like two or three moving parts in it. Like, okay, this was the um, feature engineering portion, this is the modeling portion, this is the productionization portion. So you talk about those three in three separate bullets. So that's like three bullets for one project. It could be that way. So if you're writing it that way, maybe you have room for only like three projects. But yeah, the idea is just to fill out one page in the resume. Lots of data science positions in UK have masters and above in STEM in requirements. Is there any point applying even without that degree? Thank you. If the position mentions that you need a master's or a PhD, then no. Usually there isn't a point in applying. Like there is like basic qualifications and preferred qualifications. If the degree is in the preferred qualifications, you can still apply. If the degree is in the basic qualifications, then no. Typically, there is no point in applying. Could you tell us what business metrics that HR might look for? Um, as long as there is a business metric within your bullet that the hiring manager understands, that's fine. Business metrics in terms of HR, I don't really think they understand business metrics in that way. They have like a few keywords in their head. Usually they just try to match those keywords and they look at your experience, and they look at maybe company names, a few things like that. So yeah, it's a lot more keyword oriented. The metric really depends upon what business area you're located in, and just write those for the hiring manager, not for the HR, I would say. Does machine learning engineer role need experience? Most engineering roles nowadays seem to require experience. Data engineer and software engineer still sort of take freshers. ML engineers usually, like, because there are a lot of candidates with experience applying, it looks like um, companies are preferring them over freshers. So it's hard to say. It depends upon the company also. You could land a role if you have decent projects. It's sort of like my best answer I can give. Who has 2 years of experience as a graduate research assistant in college can apply for machine learning engineer roles. Again, 2 years of experience as a research assistant, it depends. Like Emily's, the idea is you have to productionize models, and you have to be comfortable working at scale, and you have to be comfortable building reliable systems. So like there are like few skills that a hiring manager is looking for. If you have projects that demonstrates those skills, then sure, go for it. Is spam applying to jobs worth it? Is it necessary to tailor each resume for a job application? I think already mentioned that you can go for two email application, two email strategy, one cold application, one referred. Do you need to tailor each resume? No, just the skill section. Can you share the name of the repo you just mentioned from where you started? Aishwarya Naresh is the creator's name. You can check out her LinkedIn. She has it linked, I think, in a profile. In the middle of my career, I had a chance to work as a data analyst for some time, which just employed creating dashboard reports and tableaus in some experienced full stack software engineer. What roles would you think suggest I can directly bring into knowledge of ML? Since you worked in a data analyst, product data science might be a good fit. Typically, product data science means getting a bit more hands-on, or bit more knowledge on statistics and A/B testing, and if possible, working on a few more ML projects, and then you can move into a product data science role. If you want to target for an ML or LLM engineer role, it's going to be slightly different because you need to work with some kind of like distributed processing framework like PySpark. Need to have like a good understanding of one of the cloud platforms, AWS, GCP, or Azure, any one of them, and sort of have experience building sort of reliable systems, reliable in the sense that well monitored systems. So those projects you would need to showcase to switch into any kind of ML or LLM oriented role. LLM would be, I guess, different, but ML oriented role, ML engineering oriented role. Does it hurt if you have a master's in IT and security? No, masters would never hurt your job applying in data analyst or data engineering. No, it wouldn't necessarily hurt as long as you have like good projects. It should translate. Around 3 years of experience, including internship. Can I apply for roles asking 4 to 5 years? Um, Internship is typically not considered as experience. But yeah, 4 to 5 years of experience. If you have like at least two, I would say you can aim for it. It again depends upon your projects. more than your experience. 4 to 5, what they're looking for is somebody who can lead efforts without much supervision. So if you have projects where you have led the problem end to end without much supervision, if you can communicate that on resume and during interviews, you might have a chance. A PhD in applied math, but do not have industry experience other than internship, other than data science. What are the positions can I apply? Uh, Product data science, product analyst, these would be the two key ones. Especially like I feel product data science where there's a focus on statistics and A/B testing might be a good fit. And basically to crack that role, what you need to focus on is again covered in the data portfolio guide about what projects. And I think we have like another interview prep guide also that's posted in Break Into Data channel. So you can go through that for how to prep for product data science or product analyst roles. Should we list the personal AI projects we build separately than corporate projects? Yeah, you have to have like an experience section and project section. So yeah. Um, Also, our employers need to see the code you wrote for personal projects. It's more about the skill set you claim to apply. For personal projects, it's better to have the GitHub repo. If you have like at least one or two GitHub repos where your code is like well written and you're solving like a fairly decent problem, it'll come across better. I keep hearing about MLOps roles. Is that more an IT infrastructure role? No, it's sort of ML ops is it's not really an IT infrastructure role. It's more of like a monitoring slash cloud engineer role, I would say. Um, Whatever the cloud platform the company is working on, you need to be proficient at that, like AWS, GCP, or Azure, and you need to be fairly familiar with what machine learning is, what kind of metrics typically need to be monitored to make sure the ML model is behaving as expected, and how do you monitor those metrics. Sometimes some of your algorithms are like very real-time algorithms, like recommendation systems. So you need to figure out how to measure them, monitor them. So it's slightly it's a toned down version of an ML engineering role. But yeah, it's not necessarily an infrastructure role. Like there is a lot of cloud engineering component. So maybe you could call it like a SRE sort of or SRE sort of role, but you do need to know ML a bit as well, and it helps. Like MLOps is sort of like an entryway to ML engineering also. Like data analysis is like an entryway to data science. MLOps sort of acts as an entryway to ML engineering. I think, do you provide one-on-one resume builder session? No, the guide and the video is typically what I recommend because the advice is pretty much the same. Look at your bullet, ask these three questions. What is the problem? What is the technical details of solution? What is the impact? If you can answer these three questions for each bullet without referring to a previous bullet or anything, each bullet should stand on its own. If you can answer these three questions from each bullet, then you should be fine. If you feel like you don't want to ask those questions, just let ChatGPT do it for you. Like, hey, can you extract the problem, technical solution, and business impact from each of my bullets? If it can extract it successfully, awesome. Your resume is good. Do hiring managers or HR actually take the time to look through your GitHub repo? Managers do. If they feel like your project is like well documented and well commented and well structured, it does play a factor, especially at smaller companies where recruiting is a bit more expensive for them relatively. Do you recommend any book for real world problems for data scientists? I don't think any books cover any real world problems. Um, no book comes to mind. Kaggle would be the best place for real world problems because the problems that you deal with on a day-to-day basis kind of fluctuate a bit, and Kaggle uh, sort of it's just better than what any book can provide because there are forums, people keep updating competitions with new techniques, so it's just a better place to learn generally. Like critical thinking on how you approach the problem. Oh, if that's the question, then Ace the product management interview. That book is there. It helps you understand how to approach a problem much better. Are employees looking at your GitHub Git history? No, they're just looking at like when you land on the page, the README, what does it say, what problem, how well is it organized, the code, does it have a structure, and they'll maybe look at a few files here and there to see how you're doing modeling and hyperparameter tuning and how well the code is commented. That's about it, I would say. Or that's the only thing I've done at least. Um, our employees, yeah, I think that's all the questions. Cool. If there are any more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Else, I thanks for joining the session, everyone. To all the projects that we mentioned, the resume should be end to end. No, not necessarily, but there should be like if you're applying for applied data scientist, there should be at least a few projects where you productionize the model. Thank you all for joining. Hopefully, you found session useful. I'll be sharing the doc with Mary, and she'll be posting it on the group, so you guys can check out all the other resources that I mentioned.
Yeah, that
Any
was.
idea how to get? Sorry.
No, 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 go ahead.
Any idea how to get production experience before applying TS jobs? AWS is free. Like if you have like an email ID, you can use it for free for a while. Try out SageMaker. The only three things you need to get somewhat familiar with is like compute, storage, and serving infrastructure. So yeah, try out SageMaker. AWS is sort of the easiest one. Documentation is somewhat up to date more often than not. And yeah, it's you have like a decent amount to like the free tier is fairly decent, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karun. And any idea about ML Ops by any chance? Let's say if I have to give it a try with ML Ops.
AWS has, I think, a tool called something monitor, maybe. So yeah, it makes it easier to monitor your metrics. The idea is building those ETL pipelines for models that run real time. That gets tricky. So, but again,
Mm-hmm.
AWS has like blogs on how to build those pipelines out. So check that out.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure, happy to.
Also, Karan, I have a question regarding the resume that you told. So, is it better to work on like where the experience you're getting from? If I'm having a certain domain expertise, is it better to focus on that, or uh, would you recommend just try across each domain? What would you suggest on that?
Uh, Nowadays it does seem like hiring managers do prefer candidates who understand the business domain very well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have experience in a business domain and if you're
Correct.
sort of like time sensitive, like you have only like 60 to 90 days to land the job, digging deeper on that business domain and building products in that business domain would probably help you more. But
Got it.
if in case like that business domain is something that you don't like, you want to switch out of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
initially when I started, I for some reason or other I got into fintech, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to stay in fintech, so build a lot of projects in e-commerce. So,
Right. Right.
but I wasn't time sensitive. Like I already had a job, so I could build it on the side. So yeah, if you're time sensitive, focus on the business domain you already know. If not, feel free to switch over.
Got it, got it. I do come from the fintech background, and I am also in that to like change the background. So I'm trying across the utilities and retails and e-commerce. So, what would you suggest? Is it good that if we can just showcase the experience from the fintech and then showcase the projects in other domain, or what would you suggest on that?
Yep, for sure. Especially in fintech, if you've worked on forecasting or anomaly detection, it translates fairly well to retail. So those products, if you can highlight, that would be good. And your personal, your projects in e-commerce, you can sort of let it occupy maybe a slightly bigger space in your resume as well, so that you can showcase a bit more experience in the domain you're targeting. Like if it's the e-commerce, you're targeting
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce, you can let it take a bit more space in your resume.
Okay, got it. And one more question is that although I'm coming from the fintech background, I worked as a data engineer. So now I'm trying to go as a data scientist.
Mhm.
So I did have like a couple of projects, but then it's just couple of projects. It doesn't cover much of my experience or expertise. So
Mhm.
is there any advice on that, or should I work on the transferable skills for the data scientist from the data engineer's perspective? What would you suggest on that?
Uh, from a data engineer to data engineer
I
again.
did have an internship that was as a data scientist in a utility company. So obviously, I'm trying to prioritize that. But then, since I'm coming from a fintech background where I worked as a data engineer, but then I had one project that was kind of a data science where I had to like step in with the data science team and work on that. So I was able to like uh, uh, put a limelight on that and try to focus on that. But then, still, majority of my work experience is as a data engineer. So how I'm not sure how to showcase those skills.
Yeah, just keep one line about your or one project about your data engineering experience towards the bottom. Rest sort of keep it oriented towards data science, and the rest of it, make sure you like if you're going to aim for data science, make sure majority of your resume is oriented towards data science, but don't lose out on the years of experience. So primarily
Right.
when you're writing a resume, you'll have like from this month, this year to this month, this
Right.
year. Right? Make sure that sort of remains, that doesn't get deleted, and you have at
Mm-hmm.
least like two bullets on in that section. That would be
Got it.
my recommendation.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
For sure. What is the preferred, having more number of work projects but less detailed description, or less number of work projects with more details? Having more number of work projects but less detailed description. No, the description typically for every project needs to answer those three questions. If you like the problem solution impact, if you can answer those three questions well in less than in as little space as possible, it's good. So how much ever however few words you can use to answer those three questions about that project, use as few words as possible and fill in as many projects as you can. Hopefully that makes sense. So it's not about the detail of the description. The detail of the description is answering those three questions. As long as you don't sacrifice on answering those three questions, make it as short as possible. Production experience. I think I just said AWS free tier. Like AWS is what I worked with primarily because the free tier is like pretty decent. Like especially if you have student email ID. Yeah. Compute, storage, and serving. These are the three things that typically you need to take into consideration when you're building any kind of like ML model architecture. So, I mean, where do you store the data? How do you do all your modeling? And how do you serve your model? And then how do you monitor your model? So those are the four things that you need to mention. I mean, keep in mind. The monitoring part is something that's somewhat new. Like all of the cloud stacks have something or the other. I think AWS has something called AWS Monitor. I'm not sure. But yeah, just those the three things definitely. Monitor also, if you can add, that would be good. Yeah. And the products that we mentioned, just be an IPyNet file on GitHub, or there's something more needed. It could be an IPyNet file if it's just like a modeling piece. If it's like an end-to-end project, typically having like a source. So you usually have the structure where you have like source, notebooks, models, stuff like that. Um, okay, maybe this might help. There's a Python package called Cookie Cutter. Just do a pip install on Cookie Cutter and ask it to create a project for you. It'll show you the structure, what's typically recommended. Any referrals for non-profit DS projects? There are a couple of like non-profit organizations. Data Kind is one of them. Democracy Lab is another one. They run projects for like I mean related to education, stuff like that. Education, climate change, inequality in general, stuff like that. So they might have a few opportunities you could contribute to. But yeah, it tends to be a bit more data analytics oriented than data science, but it could help sort of like um, showcase some experience. REST API, no, I don't think so. I mean, at least I've never come across it in my interviews, or my mentees haven't mentioned it. No. Cool. Last 5 minutes. If I'm focusing on DS role, should I put DS related projects? I have few non-DS related experience as well. In that case, it'll look like I worked only on few projects during my work duration if I skip non-DS projects. No. Like I mentioned, at least have two bullets in your experience and don't lose out on any years of experience. Make sure that you put in at least two bullets so that you can showcase whatever years of experience you had. The rest, tailor it towards whatever role you're targeting. Fill it with projects which are tailored towards the role you're targeting. Like for instance, I had like 4 years of experience as a software development engineer before I joined as a data scientist. But I think I sort of wrote it as two bullets, so 4 sentences was 4 years of experience. So yeah, in my opinion, that's pretty much all that's required. Uh, Write projects that are relevant to the role that you're targeting. Cool. I think the questions have stopped. Hopefully, everyone had a chance to ask their questions. And yeah, we'll share everything on the channel. Thanks all. Thanks for joining. Appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And thank you, Karun. There's so many resources that you shared today. I think I'm just going to use some AI to summarize the bullet points and extract all the resources and the websites and everything and send it alongside this recording. So thank you for coming in today. And if you want to stay tuned for more workshops like these, sign up for Break Into Data's newsletter and Karun's Build ML community as well. So that's what, if you want to share more about Build ML, Karun, that would be great.
Sure. Like BuildML, we basically a community that gets together on the weekends to build projects. So yeah, right now we're doing a Access project. We also have like study groups, which are aimed to help you prepare for your upcoming interviews. And we discuss like research papers. It's free community right now. We've sort of closed applications, but we'll be opening it up in like Feb, March. So if you are interested in joining, feel free to drop an application on my top meet. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Great.
Awesome.
Have a great weekend, everyone,
Thanks
and
all.
wish you
Bye.
all the best in your job search. You got this.